Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about a topic that I kind of brought up in a podcast last night. I was basically discussing like the latest episode of Supergirl, and it kind of got me into this whole discussion of like, oh yeah, like the stages of unmasking a villain. Now this doesn't just apply to superhero stuff, this can apply to other things as well. Anything where it's like there's a main antagonist that stays hidden or is unmasked, like whatever that scenario may be. My question to you is like, what is the best form of unmasking? Now what I mean by that, I'll break it down. Like one form of unmasking is, oh, the audience knows who the bad guy is, but the main characters or protagonists still don't know. Like a great example is using Supergirl, for example. Like without going to spoilers, this current season, we as the audience know the true identity of Supergirl's main antagonist this season, at least one of them in this particular case. But Supergirl, as well as the entirety of the DEO, are still in the dark about this person's identity. And it's like, is that a good thing? Does that add like a layer of like, oh man, like, you know, it adds this kind of tension because it's like, oh yeah, this person's trying to track down and stop this bad guy, but the bad guy's like right in front of them, you know? Or there's the other aspect of like finding out the this person's identity at the same time as a protagonist. Great example would be Savitar's identity. Once again, I'm trying to avoid spoilers, but you literally find out Savitar's identity at the same time Barry does. And there's even an aspect of just like, oh, like at the tail end of something. It's not like even at, oh, at the beginning or the middle. It's like, no, you don't find out until the very last moment. It's like, oh, this is the true identity of the bad guy. Because I mean, at the end of the day, they're all interesting perspectives on like how you approach the whole unmasking thing. And I guess it ultimately depends on the story that you're trying to tell. Like, for example, like a lot of like horror movies might do the former where it's like, oh yeah, like they wait till the tail end of like, oh yeah, like especially if it's kind of like one of those movies like kind of a Scream type of movie where it's like, oh, you got this serial killer and it's not to like the last scene that you like, oh, the serial killer is kind of truly unmasked type of situation. But like with superhero stuff, for example, is it better to kind of get the villain out there known, like, oh, this is their face? Should you know sooner, or does it add an interesting aspect of anticipation when you actually like either find out like when the hero does or find out before the hero does? Like which one do you think is personally better, you know? Kind of taking this out of the superhero realm and using something else, for example, Death Note is a great example. Death Note's a series where it's like a big part of that story is the whole cat and mouse game between L and Light. But the thing is, like, from the very beginning with that series, you've always known who L was. You've always known who Light was, just because that's how the story was told. And so it gives you an interesting perspective, because in some cases it's like, well, you might know the identity of one player in the whole cat and mouse game but not the other. In this case, you get both perspectives in the story. You get to see L's side of things and you get to see Light's side of things. But the question is, would things be different if you didn't know one another? Like if you didn't know L's identity, if you were just as blind as Light was in that whole situation of like, is this person that like, it's just like if L came to Light, was just like, Light was like, this dude's trying to be my friend, he's kind of weird, kind of a little eccentric, but he's okay, I guess. And you never got that aspect of knowing like, oh man, he is L. You never knew for sure. If L's identity had stayed hidden for like most of the series, do you think that would have made things better? Or is it because of the fact is that you know and they know that it added a layer of like, no, oh man, like, is he gonna figure it out? Like, because L, it's a conversation I've had before, L has always known for such a long time that Light was Kira. He just never acted upon it because he never had 100% proof, and he was never 100% sure himself, because I just, like I brought up before, that was ultimately L's folly in this particular case. But nevertheless, because it added a layer of suspense with the whole situation, because we knew their identities, it's like, oh, when's he gonna figure out? It's like, we know, but would it be better to not know, because then you kind of be caught up in the anticipation and suspense? Like, because if you didn't know L's identity, it would also add this suspense, because it would make like every potential person that Light ever came in contact with, it could make them a potential enemy. It's like, is this person L? I don't know. Is this person L? And you know, so it's one better than the other is kind of an example I'm curious about, you know? I mean, that's kind of what this is all about. Should a villain's reveal be at the very end? Because should that be the climax? Should that be the twist, the kind of punchline in a sense? you know? Once again, I guess that ultimately goes back to, I guess maybe it depends on the story that you're trying to tell. If it is more on the suspense and thriller side of things, maybe you should be more inclined to wait to the last minute. I mean, because another twist on that too is like the fact of the matter is where you have the twist of the good guy turn into a bad guy. Great example, and this is spoilers for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, but it's from season 1, so I'm gonna go run with it. But it's Ward's turn, like the reveal that he was actually a Hydra agent. That doesn't happen until like much later in the season. It's like, it was like maybe like episode 17 or something that got revealed maybe. So it's like nearing the end of the season. Yeah, because they had built Ward up to the aspect of like, oh, he's been a good guy this entire time, and just out of nowhere it's like, oh, actually he's been a bad guy this entire time. And I think that was such a well-placed twist. I don't know if that's a situation whether you wanted that to be like a finale, like at the end of the season twist, but because it also added a layer of like, well, we as the audience know, so it's like, oh my god, here he is, but everyone else is still thinking he's a good guy when he's gone and done so much bad stuff behind the scenes and stuff like that. It adds that layer that you can play and do stuff with, you know, as the story progresses, because it's like, oh my god, they're getting so close to treating this person like this, especially because around that same time there's the whole Ward and Daisy situation, well, at the time S.H.I.E.L.D, but also there was the whole like Ward and May thing too, so it added different layers to it that if you waited till like the very end for that reveal, you wouldn't have gotten. I mean, you could have still gotten that situation, but I don't know if that's something that would carry over into another season. Like you could pick the next season up with like, oh yeah, there's this, like maybe you can, like once again, as I've said multiple times, maybe it 100% depends on the material in question. Ultimately, I've been asking it throughout the video, but what is your opinion about this? Like, which one of those forms of unmasking a villain do you enjoy the best? Which one do you think lends itself best to a story? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. These are just kind of like my thoughts floating around. I'd love to get to know yours. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this video. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.